Hello, and welcome to the Seatton Education Podcast, where we delve into all things home education with expert guests from around the world. I'm Victoria. Today I'm speaking to Reham Zia, an environmental science professional currently working with the Jane Goodall UAE Roots and Shoots program. Reham was home educated and is generously sharing her experience with us. Hi, I'm so happy that you could be here with me.
Hello, nice to meet you. So glad to finally connect.
Can you start by giving people a little bit of an introduction to yourself, how old you are and how long you were home educated and where you're living now?
So I'm 22 now, and I live in Abu Dhabi with my family. And I was homeschooled since I was in middle school, and I feel like I'm still homeschooled in a way. And now I get to see my amazing younger brothers go through that same journey, and so they're like at a different stage. So they're more proud of it in their age than I probably would have been.
So you did go to school first.
Yes, I did for a couple years.
Why did your parents or you choose to change and leave the school system?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the biggest players was the fact that my mom would say, well, you guys were average, like C's, maybe 17 math, and like she'd be like, at home, I can tell you guys have great potential, but the second you go to school, you just become less than you are. She would pick up little things that there were some inconsistencies. As we grew, we just didn't get any better. And she knew that we had much more potential than we showed in school.
And you have thrived through home education. Just tell us what you're up to now and what you've been doing since leaving what would have been sort of formal high school age.
Absolutely. I'm working with the Jane Goodall UAE Roots and Shoots team in the UAE, which is a great combination of what my field was for my bachelor's degree. And I'm working as a school liaison and outreach officer. So I love events and different outreach activities, really catering to students. And really, what I learned as a child through homeschooling, which was experiential learning, hands on learning, experiencing the world. I mean, I have so much to see here in the UAE. So, and after high school, I felt like when I was, looking at applying to universities, I had so many activities that I could not figure out what to choose. That was my problem. It was kind of funny. It was a nice problem to have. People don't have enough things to choose from. And I had like so many volunteer experiences, competitions, awards that I couldn't fit in. People would be so surprised by that. That was the biggest thing.
Yeah, absolutely. That is, I think, always a misconception about home educated kids that they won't have these opportunities. So, what did you study as an undergraduate?
Sure, I did my degree in environmental science with a concentration in natural resources.
And you did that in the States.
Yes.
It's interesting that you went into sciences because I think sometimes that's an area that potential homeschool parents sometimes worry about teaching at home.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the biggest things is that I never knew what I liked, which I think people stress their kids out way too much about what you should like. You should like something, have an area. And my brother had a specific area in history, so he was always good at that, and everything else was kind of average. Whereas I felt like I was good at everything. I would do great after, of course, the first couple of years of homeschooling. My mom figured out, wow, you're actually really good at English, you're really good at science, you're really good at history. It's just that school didn't give me enough time to figure out what I need to work on, like the basics and fundamentals. But for me, I never thought, like, nobody gave me the confidence that I could be something in science. And I had people in my life when I was in school would literally tell an 8-year-old, you can't do that at all. There's no way you could do that. And that's what I think limited me. But my parents caught on that I ended up having a niche interest in environmental science because they would see I would love talking about those things or care about those topics and do my projects about anything in nature. And I love nature, and it's something that is a part of me. And so actually my parents were a big contender. I feel like we know a lot about ourselves, but there's just this two other human beings that also know us, but if not better, because they've seen the whole growth, which I love. I love talking about this because they have played a big role in what I like to do, because they allow me to experience everything and then let me decide at the end of that, what do you want to do? And I ended up finding this degree, and it's perfect for the region as well where I am. It's all the in topics, and the past 2 years, the country's theme of the year was sustainability. So it just made sense, and it just felt like my whole life lined up after that. So when I followed exactly what my passions were, I feel like everything else kind of fell into place. So I didn't really have to try hard. It was just something that I loved doing, and it just opened so many doors for me automatically.
And that's so lovely to hear that shift from that really limited mindset and limiting mindset when you were at school, and then through your parents just providing opportunities for you and coming back to those experiential learning experiences, suddenly you were able to see areas of passion and pursue it. But it wasn't just science. I mean, you really delved into lots of subjects. Let's just talk about the languages that you learnt. That's a real area of interest for me.
Absolutely. My mom was a big, both my parents actually always pushed us. They were like, you will never be limited in life if you know multiple languages. And they would push us to learn all sorts of, important languages like, Mandarin, French. These are like the top languages that are, everywhere. And of course, they made sure that English was a big one, but and then to know all aspects of English, not just conversational, but also writing English, business. How do you communicate certain things? How do you expand what you already know? And you'll never know everything. You'll never know too much. There's always a learning. And so I think one of the biggest concepts about our homeschool journey was there's always something to learn about. And
Mm.
so there'll be weekends where we're just sitting there enjoying watching TV, and they'll be like, there's always something that you can learn right now, even if it's not school. But learning is everywhere. You open the door, there's learning experience. You go in the kitchen, there's learning experience. You go anywhere else, like the fabric or how this is made. And so they really pushed us, and languages was a big part of it. I really loved French, so my mom even got a teacher who could come to our house, and she would be cooking and talking in French, and saying, this is what you say in French. Whenever I go in the kitchen, I pick up an egg. I'm like, oh, that's what this is in French, and this is what that is in French. So I think I really worked well with like a hands-on experience and was able to, learn better in that environment.
That's so useful because I think languages, again, is another area that people in the school system sometimes find really dry and they find it very difficult to learn. But it's very difficult to learn a language when you don't have any practice or putting it into a real life setting. So it sounds like your parents just created a kind of haven for
Yeah.
learning languages, which is amazing. You touched on earlier some activities that you did, and you've been far too modest because you are the activities queen. Just talk us through some of the hobbies you did, some of those competitions, giving us an idea of what your sheltered homeschooled life was like.
Oh, so sheltered, so sheltered. In fact, so sheltered that I went out in the world more, and I had some family that would be, or like extended people that we knew who'd be like, oh, there's no way you could do so and so because you're homeschooled. There's no way you can be out in the world. And I was like, did the complete opposite through homeschooling. I think the term homeschooling just sounds like, oh, you're at home all day, which was complete opposite for our experience.
Mm.
My mom she would push me. She would say, go to that, talk there, talk to this person. I didn't understand why. And one of the first things I started to do to get better at, speech and just talk to people more was model UN. And that was one of the first things. It was in Dubai. I remember being so shy. I'm like, first of all, I can't talk to another person, let alone on a stage in front of people debating about country issues. Like that's like a whole other level. And that was my first experience. And slowly that was step one. Then I went to another one the next year and the year after that. And then I finally did more debate things, and I found that niche, and I got over that fear that was just keep holding me back. So that was one of the best, I would say, experiences for me to really get out there, but also focus on a skill that's a lifelong skill, which is public speaking.
Mm. And I was just going to mention that because you have done really well in the debating sphere. How do you think that has impacted your later life?
So people think that debate means arguing. Debate is not that you learn to argue with people. I think it teaches you the opposite. It teaches you a perspective, because in debate you need to learn both sides of the story. You need to be able to view the pro and the con, then make a speech that dives into what your perspective is, persuade the other person or the other party, but also mention the rebuttal. That's the whole aspect of debate. And so I feel like it taught me a lot of like how to listen to people, because people are going to be different everywhere you go. And for one of my job interviews, I remember the interviewer asked me, how would you deal with people that are talking nonsense and that our colleagues are being this and rude. I'm like, well, people are going to be different. That's what makes the experience more fruitful, because you know how to deal with all kinds of people. And my mom would push me to be around all kinds of people. She used to say that you need to learn to be around all kinds of people, because then you'll know how to talk to those kind of people. Especially working, you talk to people, you have to be diplomatic. You can't really express anger a certain way. You want to maintain your respect, self-respect, and respect of others, of course. So debate was a huge part, and I found that to be a niche for me that I really enjoyed to talk about, and I enjoyed even more to teach. So I started teaching that for a couple years, and getting kids involved who also were like me, shy, reserved, didn't know how to start, and that gave them an avenue that they still use right now, doing different things.
Oh, that's wonderful to hear. And so lovely that you have taken on your passion for learning through a number of teaching and sort of guiding projects.
Yes, so I think homeschooling taught me that I can never just do one thing. So I have a full-time job, but I'm doing 10 side hustles, 10 different, some of them are not even paid. They're just volunteer things for my little siblings. And but really, life is so beautiful like that. I think homeschooling teaches a very important skill, which is, again, learning is everywhere. So there's never an end to that. You can learn anything. You don't have to follow a rigid system or someone else's system to learn something. You can always learn something. And that taught me so much that I kind of carry myself with that kind of value, that I go around, teach other kids the same thing. And I see kids, they're teens, young tweens and teens, who I just kind of focus on and tell them these things, because they also have the same mindset where we have to do XYZ to be here. Even
Mm.
university, people used to think, oh, you need to have a proper high school diploma and then go to a brick and mortar university and then you'll get the experience. That's the opposite of what happens. I feel like some my experience was even more heightened because I didn't follow the traditional method.
Mm.
And I have people around me who follow traditional method and are coming out to be average human beings, whereas they have so much creativity in them that they can do much more than what they are allowing themselves to be, which
Mm.
which I think our family has done a great job of really implementing.
Yeah, and I think that touches on the idea that homeschooling is really a lifestyle. It's not just the way you educate your children, it's both for the parents and the children. It's this whole new way of seeing the world, isn't it?
Absolutely, I agree.
Yeah. And how do you think the homeschooling journey shaped your relationships, both with your parents and with your siblings?
We do have a really great bond in a way that's, it's not about just, oh, we have a great bond because we live in the same house. It's a great bond that's beyond that. My All my brothers, we all share, like, we watch TV together, we make time for each other, and we often feel like we want to leave an outside activity and come back and then
Wow.
share that with each other. And we do have an age gap. I have a brother who's about 7 years younger to me. Sometimes I feel like we don't have any interests that match, but we still bond in a different way. And I recently had to travel for 10 days, so I was away from my family for the first time really for that long.
Mm.
And I would get messages little here and there, like, oh, miss you, or so it's just beautiful to have a good bond like that, especially with brothers. And I feel like
Yeah.
I've learned a lot about men in the process.
Yes, I am sure. I am sure. I think that's so fascinating because I think that is a concern for all parents
Yeah,
of will my children get on? Um, just how that dynamic will work as they grow up through the teenage years, and particularly, I think, when there's a gender difference as well.
absolutely.
But I have heard so many homeschoolers say that those sibling bonds are something that you can't ignore, that there is a correlation. I guess because you're spending so much more time
So
together.
much time. Yeah, absolutely. And one of the biggest things is, like, my bond was, I feel like, heightened more because I taught my brothers for a long time
Mm.
as well. I was at that age where I could teach and they were still, in middle schools. And for me, that was like, whoa, like, I played a role not only in their life being a sister, but also being able to be a part of their education journey. And it makes me really happy to have played that role in their life.
Mm, that's really special. And I think a lot of people would say from the quote unquote normal world where this kind of model of living isn't mainstream, they could say, oh, how terrible, that's making you behave like a parent to your siblings. But I
Mhm.
think Personally, I think there's so much to be gained from that. And actually, like you said, as a kind of aside there, but it taught you so much about men. I think when we go on into adult life, through a
Yes.
lot of the school system and the associated life patterns that come with that, we don't really have any training in what it's
Mm.
like to coexist with people that sometimes we don't get on with, to battle out the day-to-day issues that are involved in close relationships. And actually, as adults, I think it boils down to having really close relationships with people, and that is a skill that you have to hone and perfect.
Absolutely. I mean, how else you learn about coexisting
Mm,
other, if you're not experiencing that? And I think that for me at a time, there was an option to live alone. There was an option to study abroad, and it didn't pan out in that way. But I learned more about people and how they operate at different ages, especially adolescents, at home. And
mm,
I think that that's something people don't talk about enough, and it's kind of sad because I feel like I see other people share about, oh, it's lovely to be alone, living alone, but they don't share enough about how it's actually like to live with your family at a certain age. I think after 18, everyone's off and away, but there's an essence to living at home because there's a lot that you play a role. And I imagine for the younger sibling how it looks to have an older sibling that's still around, still
mm,
helping out, dropping them here, taking them places. You don't have to go to a campus or to a workplace to learn about how to be an adult. I learned so much being at home. My parents
mm,
gave us advice. They would just talk about life. And like, what better way to talk about life and what to come than with your own family who's experienced that? I can't get that same advantage from talking to somebody my own
mm,
age who's not
mm,
experienced that yet. So I think it gave us a big advantage. And we had family that would come and go, kids and grandmothers, and that taught me a lot about how to manage what you're doing with people being at your house. If you have
mm,
work, you got to come back. What do you have to do to support them? And really about community. It's really important, and I really value being at home.
mm.
Yeah.
Yeah, those are life lessons that will stand you for the rest of your life. And
Absolutely.
I think one of the reasons it can be very difficult to do something different is there's such strong, pervasive popular culture that shows us what high school looks like in particular. I suddenly felt like that when I was that age. I felt there was a very clear image of what life as a 16-year-old was meant to look like, or what life as an 18-year-old was meant to look like. Do you feel that you missed out on that? And did you how did you manage your different existence with that sort of strong, popular, prevalent culture idea?
Mm. I love this question because I'm going to be honest, because there was a little point when I was like 18. I'm like, well, I'm not doing what everybody else is doing. And I did struggle for a little bit. I think I struggled with understanding what my journey was going to look like and comparing it to other people's journeys. And that stopped very quickly when COVID happened and people had to just go back to their home countries or their homes, and it kind of. But yes, there was a point where I did feel like I need to now do my own thing, and how will that look like now? But everyone's journey looks so different. I can't compare,
Mm,
and it's such a small moment of your life. That journey is the beginning of adulthood. There's so much more. There's so many more layers to it. I think a job is one of the biggest parts of that journey because you're now getting to utilize what you learned into an actual setting. And when I got my first internship at 17 at the World Wildlife Fund, that stopped very quickly because people around me, and it's very typical, you don't get an internship until you've done a couple years of your degree first. It's very normal to get a job only after your degree,
mm,
not before. Or if you have a job before, it's pretty small. Or
mm,
so I was so lucky that I got a chance to do that. Why? Because I was available, I was here, I was studying, but I was able to work at the same time, and
mm,
that gave me such a boost to be able to work much younger than everybody else. But I sat with my parents. I sit with them for all my important decisions, everything. I talk to them because it matters to me what someone else thinks, because in a way to get perspective, not my aunt or uncle or a friend, but my parents who know me, who know what
mm,
I can handle. So you have to let yourself be yourself,
mm.
if that makes sense, because
I,
I feel like, yeah.
it makes perfect sense, and I think there's increasingly a lot of research in the field of peer influence and what impact that kind of excessive peer influence has on young adults as they grow up. And a book I was reading recently by a psychologist, and in exactly this area, was basically making the point that it's really difficult for young people in high schools of 2,000 people actually to hear exactly what you just said, to hear what their heart is telling them, because they've actually lost touch with that, because they are so crowded out by the voices of the 1,000 other kids their own age who they're with, that they actually lose sight of what their gut is telling them or where their heart is leading them. And that's really interesting that you were able to have that headspace to sit down, to quietly go through it with two people who love you, who know you, who've seen you right through all of your stages, and to come to a decision that actually was the decision that was actually inside you anyway. It gave you that space and that clarity, perhaps.
Absolutely. And,
Mm.
having, I think people often say that, I just want to, I hear a lot of, friends, and I've had distant acquaintances that talk about, like, can't wait to leave my family. It's everywhere in the movies. I mean,
Yeah.
what are we feeding children? We're telling children, when you're a teenager, hate your parents, hate what they say, really. And I say hate, it's a strong word, but they do. I
Yeah.
mean, I watched a couple, teen coming of age movies, and all they do is the parent is this evil creature who's telling you to follow your potential, but you have to hate that. You have to hate them for that. You have to do your own thing, mess up, and just be okay with it, and do weird. I mean, they don't say that to every other thing that kids are doing, and there's some really awful content out there. There are awful things they've been told to do, which is so normalized.
Mm.
And I'm sorry, I mean, how can you follow that? How can you follow into that, knowing that you'll turn out to be the same as everybody else, whereas you can be safeguarded from that, do things in the best way possible, still learn, get the experience that you need to get, and be more wholesome. I think it's more wholesome to do it this way.
But actually, it's a really interesting link there. Let's go on to talk about your amazing mother, because I spoke to one mother recently. She was worried that if she quit her career to stay home with her children, that they would not respect her, that they would come to a point where they would say, oh, you gave up everything, and what did you do with your life? Your mother did give up everything. She gave up a career in banking to home educate the four of you. I would love to hear your thoughts on that decision.
I love this question so much. Thank you for bringing it up. When she tells me that, yeah, when I was this age, or 20, she was a bit older, I left my job for my kids, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, like, how'd you? Now that I'm working, I'm like, how did you do that? And let me be real. When we were in the initial years of homeschooling, and I didn't really, I guess I never asked my mom, like, oh, you left a job. Like, we didn't really, it wasn't a discussion in the house. Like, my mom would come to the table and say, I left my job for this, it better work. She never, so I never knew that. I never
Mm.
knew that was a big thing in her life, because she made what she was doing so wholesome
Mm.
that there was nothing missing in her life. And I do see a lot of people around me that mention this to their kids, and I feel like that's not a good, I mean, then the kid feels like they have
Mm.
to do something to make up for, but that's a part of you. And there's some moms that I'm around, so many mothers, which is so beautiful as well, and they talk about, like, what about me time, like, how do you
Mm.
get that time to yourself? And my mother, like, so she left that successful banking job, which is something I was like, how do you do that? But she didn't leave her life. She didn't leave her potential behind. My mom was so involved in my MUN, my Model United Nations journey. That's the chairperson for the Dubai branch, and because they work with the New York team a lot, they were like, "You're so involved. Can we hire you?" Just, I mean, hire you not as a volunteer or an intern or like a small officer. She became the chair of the regional Model UN program. It's just, I saw my mom full of life, always wholesome, never something that she feel like she missed out. And she also enabled us to do our own things. So when she wanted to have some time to herself, she could do that. It's not like a mom is being limited by this decision. In fact, I feel like we all were able to do so much because she felt like she could do it.
Mm.
People around her did not agree with this decision at all. So I feel like even more, I ask her these days, I'm like, how were you so sure when your friends, when your
Mm.
family didn't agree with this homeschooling decision? And she was like, I was sure of it. That's all that mattered. Like, and a mom knows what's good for her children. She knew this was the path, and she didn't
Mm.
know if it would succeed or not, but she did what she had to do. She was she gave it her all, which, and she enjoyed it too. I mean, there are times she mentions field trips, and I'm like, you were there. We enjoyed it even more because you were there, and we enjoyed
Mm,
it too because you were having fun with us.
mm,
And that's what made my journey. Doesn't need to be expensive. It just needs to be fun. Like when my mom was having fun, we had fun.
mm.
So, and now we have a little mom and daughter time. Then we like adults, so we can just do our own thing. But yeah, she was wholesome about it, so we didn't ever feel like there was a limiting factor, and she didn't feel that way either.
And I think you've talked about time there. And actually, I think the wealth of time with your family, the richness that that gives is, yeah, greater than rubies and pearls.
Absolutely. She was someone I looked up to, and she could do everything. So I'm like, I want to be that. I want to talk to people in accents. I want to be able to be a good communicator, and be able to do, like, believe that I can do it and also do it.
Mm,
That's something that she has. She doesn't need affirmation or acceptance from others to do what she wants to do. She's like, I
mm.
want to do this. I'm going to do it. And she's gone all over the world. I'm sure she's been all over the world, spoken about homeschooling. I mean, what better way to, and she's not working a typical job, but she's doing all these things. I mean, that's beautiful to me.
And I think that comes back to the lifestyle point, because this is outside of normal life. We'd all agree on that. But isn't that great? That sets
It's
you up
great.
for a life that is not normal.
I mean, we travel at any time of the year. We don't have to wait for the school year to
Mm.
end to travel. And my grandmother is with us for a while, and so she's kind of looking at our lifestyle like, oh, you guys are actually really busy. And we're like, what do you think we were doing? At home all day? Like, so yeah, we get a chance to travel and do so many things, and it's beautiful. I mean, we travel is a big part of our homeschool journey,
Mm,
and we have people that still can't travel and are limited to
mm.
summertime, and we can just get up and just experience life somewhere else, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
And I suppose the next question would be, if you had children, would you home educate them?
It's one of the fundamental things that I'm going to look for, is that we need to homeschool. That's like a fundamental decision, like non-negotiable, because it's so important to my family that I hope, we say inshallah in Arabic, it's God willing. Inshallah, my future family, my in-laws, I would want this to be such a big part of our journey too, like that we have so strongly believe in home education. We do so much about it that it would be hard for me to adjust to a family that doesn't agree with that or doesn't really believe in it, which, the family doesn't matter, the person at the end, the husband matters, of course. But for my children, 100%, 100,000%, I would want to experience that from not only an experienced person of homeschooling, but also give back to a child in this way that's my own child. It'd be beautiful to do that.
Inshallah. I really hope that
Inshallah.
happens for you.
Inshallah.
And my last question, you've touched on so many wonderful benefits of homeschooling, but if you just had to have one takeout, somebody stops you in the street and says, what's the biggest benefit of homeschooling? What would you put your finger on?
Oh, I think the values at the end of the day, the values that I was able to learn, that I no one could teach me, no one could teach those values of family, understanding, patience, learning. There's just so many different things to learn from this experience, that I feel like people who just give it a shot for like a month and they're like, oh, it doesn't work like that.
Mm.
You need to give it time, you need to give it that much energy that it needs. And I feel like that's one. I can't do one, sorry. And second would be, like, the mother plays such a huge role in how confident you would be at the end of it. And I feel like if the mother figure is not confident about this decision and doesn't feel confident about your learning, then you will never be confident. Like, I was only confident because she was,
Mm.
and my father supported every single thing, just pulling in money to just support
Mm.
us and to do things, and still giving us direction and guidance. And he was like, oh, you should do this, you should do what, he just, that's so important for me. And they still tell me to this day that where learning stops, development stops.
Mm.
You got to keep going, learning and developing. And to make a decision, they would say, will you learn and develop from this, then go forward. If you feel like you're just doing it on a whim, it's not
Mm.
worth it. And that's why I was able to do things in advance so much. Like, I graduated high school early, graduated university early, and it just gave me a lot more perspective. So values and support from your family, from your parents, not any other family, not uncles and aunts. You just need your parents. That's it.
Yeah. Oh, Reham, thank you so much for joining me. It's been an absolute delight speaking to you.
Of course. Thank you so much.
And thank you for joining me and Reham for the Seatton Education Podcast. Whether you watched us on YouTube or you listened as a podcast, please subscribe, like, and comment as we discuss how home education can be an achievable alternative to conventional schooling. See you next time.